Before starting to select the finishes and furniture for a project, a designer determines which codes are applicable. Building and fire safety code requirements not only affect exposed finishes such as furniture, wall panels, ceilings, and flooring, it also involves the non-exposed finishes such as foam and seating and material substrates or cores. Just as in all other aspects of life, government regulations and standards have become necessary to protect people from unsafe living and working conditions. Federal administrative bodies administer statutes enacted by Congress in specific areas. These agencies create rules, regulations, supervise, and render decisions that have the force of law. These laws have been developed to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all citizens. Contract documents must conform to these regulations. A building code sets forth minimum requirements for design and construction in order to protect the health and safety of the occupants of a building and protect the building structure itself. Such codes describe requirements for fire protection, structural design, sanitary facilities, light, and ventilation. The purpose of building codes is to provide a minimum level of safety. King Hammurabi's ancient law of retaliation was the first set of recorded building codes dated as early as 2000 BC. The codes concentrated on the prevention of building collapse. The Hammurabi Code prescribed penalties that range from monetary fines to death. For example, Law 229 states that if a builder built a house for someone and did not construct it properly, then the builder shall be put to death if the house falls and kills its owner. The International Code Council first published the International Building Code in April of 2000. Almost all building codes in the U.S. are adopted from the following codes. This document was an attempt to provide one building code for uniformity and ease of use. Other regulations affecting interior designers include local agency requirements such as Municipal Health Department rules and regulations, state or federal agency requirements, energy codes, flammability regulations, federal regulations, standards adopted by reference, indoor air quality, and the American Disabilities Act. Cities, counties, and state officials decide on what building codes to adopt. When a jurisdiction adopts a code, it becomes a law. To determine a code's application to aspects of the building, you must know the use or occupancy, and the type of construction. In addition to the occupancy and construction type, oftentimes the configuration and size of a building are also aspects to evaluate. Typical occupancy designations include assembly, business, educational, hazardous, institutional, and residential. As one might expect, codes increase in strictness as one moves from private residences through retail spaces and public spaces to schools, and eventually onto hazardous environments. The type of construction is determined by the building materials used and the fire-resistant rating of the structural elements and other building components. Notice, as the type of construction number increases, the more combustible the building. For a Type 1 construction, key structural elements are commonly encased in concrete or fire-rated drywall. Oftentimes, they are sprayed with a fire-rated material so that the framing materials are not immediately exposed to any direct flames. Type 5 construction is a fairly broad classification. It uses any structural element constructed from a material permitted by the code. Neither the exterior nor interior walls need to be of a non-combustible material, though some areas must be rated for fire resistance. The administration and enforcement of building and other construction codes is typically performed by the local building department, including the chief building inspector and staff. They check for code compliance, issue building permits, and perform inspections during and after the completion of construction. Whereas a building department focuses on the enforcement of the building code, the local fire department is often concerned about a project's compliance with the fire code. Fire codes are typically performance-based and deal primarily with the material contents of a building and the preservation of human life. The National Fire Protection Association's 101 Life Safety Code is the most widely referenced fire code in the U.S. Many fire codes and flammability standards have been developed as a direct result of significant fires. For example, in 1903, the Iroquois Theater in Chicago caught fire. 603 people were killed. As a result of the fire, outward swinging exit doors, panic hardware on exit doors, and lit exit signs are mandatory in places of assembly. Like building codes, the first industrial standards date back thousands of years. As the Western world turned away from an agricultural-based economy, standardizations of parts and products became essential for industrial growth. The standards referenced in building codes can be classified as material standards, engineering practice standards, and testing standards. Both public and private organizations publish standards. Standards are material specifications, practices, or test methods based on technical research and testing by industry experts. Standards are not laws unless they are incorporated by reference in a code. One of the standard organizations is the American National Standards Institute, or also known as ANSI. ANSI does not develop standards. They coordinate the development of standards by private and governmental organizations. There are more than 800 ANSI standards covering a variety of products. The American Society for Testing and Materials develops standards for products and materials used in manufacturing and construction. The National Fire Protection Association develops standards concerned with the causes and prevention of destructive fires. The NFPA serves as a primary source of fire protection information. The Underwriters Laboratory's sole objective is the promotion of public safety. The term UL listed means products have been tested with regard to fire, electric shock, and other safety hazards. UL's field representatives make unannounced visits to manufacturers to verify that materials and products continue to apply with UL standards. Ultimately, interior designers share in the responsibility to use resources wisely and to create buildings that support human and environmental health and safety.